Hi, I'm Ed Parcaut, your host of Inner Edison. And what I'd like you to take away from today's show is our greatest accomplishments come from our greatest defeats. Today's guest is Amanda Barrientez, and let's welcome her and see her journey. How you doing, Amanda?
Hey, Ed, doing awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Did I get close on the last name?
You nailed it. Good job.
Good thing I wrote it down. I wasn't, the best kid in school, but I did get my master's. So, what are you going to do?
Nice. Well, and that doesn't really help you with names anyway.
No, I mean, that's the thing. And I talk to people a lot of times because in my business, we constantly have to spell people's names. And I ask them even the easiest names, right? And they think I'm stupid. It's like, you don't understand. My wife's name is Marcia, Marcia. Ever since then, I don't assume I know how to spell a name because people spell it totally differently depending on where you come from. Like my last name, if you're in France, they add an L. Right. No. And whenever you say it, people want to add, Parkot, and they never do it right. Right.
Oh yeah. You could, if I just heard yours, there's no way I would know how to spell it.
That's okay. Yeah, and that's,
it's funny. When I was little, I hated, this was my middle name and I didn't like it. And so I wouldn't share it with people and they'd say, well, what's your middle name? Let us guess. And I'd say, go for it. It's 10 letters long. It starts with a B and it ends with a Z. Best guess. They're like, oh, that's not going to happen.
Well, I guess it's worked for you now, right?
Yes. Yeah. Love it now.
So do you want to go by Dr. Amanda or is Amanda okay?
Amanda's great.
All right. A lot of my listeners are not going to know who you are. You're not in the United States, right?
I am. Yep.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought, where?
Colorado.
Okay. For some reason, I thought Canada. I guess it's just that C thing threw me off. Yeah. Just so you know, I lived in Colorado half my life.
Oh, wow. So, where?
All over. Denver, nice. Grand Junction, Maybell, Clifton, you name it. We lived there. It's wherever my dad's next advancement was with Ma Bell. We moved to.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a Colorado native. So
where do you live in Colorado? You don't have to give me address. I'm just
curious. I'm in Colorado Springs. I was in Summit. I grew up in Summit County and then moved to Boulder. Was there for 25 years and just moved to Colorado Springs a little while ago.
Well, all right. Yeah. What is your story? Right. Because I read up on you and I don't want to throw what I know. I want you to tell me your story so my listeners know who you are, and then we'll get into what you do.
Yeah. So I would say my story started at least in this professional entrepreneurial world. It started with my own fall down. So I love, the way that you frame your podcast. It's just, having my biggest breakdown led to my biggest breakthroughs. And, when you're stuck in it, you don't always see it that way. But it started with crying on the floor one night. It was like I had left my 15-year marriage having an affair. Next relationship wasn't working. So he was moving out. And so the basement was empty. And I was sitting on the floor looking at this empty space and just started crying. And I was like, oh my God, my life is a wreck. I had been looking at Craigslist at the time. It was Craigslist looking for new places to move. And I had 3 kids and I was in grad school and all of the places were super expensive. And I didn't know where I was going to move. I didn't have enough money. I was thinking, am I going to have to get rid of my dog, live in a studio apartment? Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I had been going to a free counselor that the school that I was teaching at provided. And they, she said, you got to go on food stamps. And so I just had a lot of shame and upset and embarrassment. And so I was sitting on the floor crying. I was like, oh my God, what's the common denominator here? It's really me. And so I decided in that moment, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to have a better relationship and to figure out this, get through this situation. And so it led me to listening to podcasts because I was super busy and, didn't have any money. And so everywhere I went, I would listen to podcasts on double speed. It was like washing the dishes, taking my kids to school, riding my bike to class. I had a 10-minute break in between classes. And I would, during that time, just walking those 10 minutes, I'd listen to 20 minutes of a podcast. And it just started saturating my brain with different information than I had been getting my whole life. And it really started to work and things started to change. And the thing that I realized is that all the people that created the podcasts were coaches. And I was like, what is there in this coaching thing? And so it started to plant that seed that it was possible for me to be a coach. And kind of the cool way the world works out is that at the same time that this was happening for me, and I was really starting to learn new parts of myself and realize that relationships, money, self-confidence is a skill that you can learn. We had in our department just this national news fallout where we had professors leaving and people were stressed. And I was just going, I don't think I want to be a professor anymore, which I had been in grad school for a long time. And so I decided at the end of grad school, I'm going to take the leap and become an entrepreneur instead of going into academia. And so I did that. And in my first year of business, I went 6 figures. And so that really led me in the direction of going like, wow, you can really transform yourself rapidly, dramatically. And it starts with people's relationships to money. From my perspective, I went, oh, there's a lot of money blocks that people have. And if I can help them with that, they can be successful in business. And so that's what it's turned into.
So what was the first business that you took to 6 figures?
I thought I was going, well, it was coaching. It was definitely my coaching business. And I thought I was going to focus on relationships because I had started with relationship work on myself. And then that very quickly, all of the networking events that I went to were with entrepreneurs. So I was working with entrepreneurs. And then very quickly I realized, oh, I can just help them transform anywhere that they're stuck. And so it started with, somewhat relationship. I started a relationship workshop, and then it turned into one-on-one coaching with entrepreneurs who were stuck. I would go, my 30-second commercial would be like, if you're stuck, come talk to me. And it just started there. And then it unfolded over time into me realizing that there's really common patterns where entrepreneurs get stuck in terms of their unconscious blocks. And so my favorite quote that really aligns my whole business is by Carl Jung. And he says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And I really started to see people get stuck, not because of the reasons they think they're stuck. It's like, it's not really about the wrong lead magnet. It's that they have inner blocks that are stopping them from getting where they want to go. And so I saw common patterns across the board of the money blocks that people have. And so I started working with what I call competing commitments.
So what are the things that most entrepreneurs have an issue with money? Because that's what you're talking about, the block that they have. What is that normal common theme? And I'm sorry if I'm a little congested today. I've been at Indian Casino for the last week at a conference, and there's nothing worse than being in a casino for a conference because all the smoke. But
yeah. The common thing I noticed overarching was competing commitments. So this is what I describe as when people say one thing and do another, which we can see over and over again in procrastination, right? So we go, or anything where they go, oh, I want to build a 6-figure business and I'm really inspired to do it, but then they don't take any action. Or they get on Facebook and go, I'm going to, create a post, but then they get lost in the wormhole for 5 hours looking at other people's Facebook. And instead of, creating content, they're consuming content. So I look at that as a competing commitment. And I kept seeing this over and over again. And I was like, that's really interesting. And then with money blocks are just, they're money-based competing commitments. So competing commitments, the reason that this rules your life is because 95% of us is run by our unconscious system and only 5% by our conscious system. So no matter what, even if you say you want to do something and you can put some action into it, if you have the underlying belief system that you can't do it, you're not good enough, you're an imposter, you're worried whether other people will think you're crazy, you have fear of success, a fear of failure, you have all that going on underneath, that's going to win out every time because it's 95% of you. And so I saw people having this over and over again. And I thought, I got to create a money blocks profile because I saw the patterns. So I see for entrepreneurs, there are 3 main money blocks. One is money is bad. The next is money is scarce. And the next is money causes stress. And I like to think about these like paradigms where you have a whole bunch of different money beliefs underneath those. And so things that come up really commonly, I would say with new entrepreneurs, are things like imposter syndrome, where they're afraid they're not good enough. They negatively compare themselves to other people. They're afraid of sales. They're afraid of promoting themselves. They are very afraid of the responsibility of success. So they sabotage themselves before they even start to be successful. They'll think things like, oh, when I get really successful, I'll lose my time freedom, which really they're creating their business for the whole reason of having time freedom. But then they have this underlying fear of, oh, I got to work 10 times as hard and then I won't have time freedom. And then what do? I can't have a great relationship and have my business fly. What if it's stressful? What if I can't handle the load? I mean, I could list thousands of money blocks that people have that all fall into these top 3 patterns.
Let's talk about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Because I think that most entrepreneurs have that issue, right? They think that they're an imposter, even though that they're really good at what they do. Yeah. But they think they're, who am I? I'm only this person who now I'm here doing this other thing. And I think, because people maybe been in an industry and they're doing really well and then they're going to do something else. And they're like, I don't know if I'm really this person, right? And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that issue, whether or not they want to agree to it or not. But a lot of them go on, they just, when they're promoting themselves, they're afraid to promote themselves a certain way.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're so right. And it shows up with people overworking and being perfectionists. So and then procrastinating and analysis paralysis, all these things where they'll start to create, let's say they create a website and they tweak it and tweak it and tweak it. And they're like, oh, I'll launch the product or the program or the service once it's tweaked perfectly and I can get it out there. And really what's going on, exactly what you're saying, is imposter syndrome, because they have that underlying fear of like, do I know what I'm doing? And the truth is, anytime we start something new, we don't know what we're doing. Like it takes practice to get good at things. And we have this expectation of ourselves that if we want to promote it, it needs to be perfect. And we need to be the experts, and we need to be, better than the next person at it. And the truth is, you only need to be one step ahead of the people that you're serving. Right. And so that is hard for people, especially when they're, let's say, taking the leap from a profession where they've made a lot of money or have been successful and know what they're doing, into this place where you feel like an infant again, because there's that learning curve where you go like, oh, I really don't know what I'm doing. There are a lot of aspects to business to learn when you start a new business. And most of them aren't ones that we learn anywhere else. And so you can bring in some of your previous skills, but learning a new business is like, birthing a newborn. You go like, oh, it's a whole new business. I've got to learn branding. I've got to learn marketing. I've got to learn how to talk about it, how to promote myself, how to be good at the area of expertise that I'm focusing on, and then let go of those fears and realize over time, I'll get better and better and better. And that art of building confidence is taking action in the direction. It's not that you just all of a sudden make a decision and you're instantly confident about it. You've actually got to practice and refine yourself and fall down and get up. And, the word failure to me is an interesting one, because we fail a lot in business, but it's not actually a failure, because when you look at it and go, oh, I've learned so much now in this next round of my business and this next evolution, I'll just be better at it. And then, that next step will be faster. And then I'll figure out the next evolution where I'll bump into something. I'll go, oh crap, I don't know how to do this now either. And so I think most normal people feel like imposters when they start new businesses.
Well, and people are gonna. The whole purpose of this podcast is to talk about our greatest failures, or come into our greatest accomplishments.
Yeah.
The issue is that I think, back to the imposter, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing stuff. You can still get nervous. I know, speakers and coaches that go up on stage to speak and they haven't spoken, 6 months to 8 months. And they're like, you're like, this guy is amazing. And he's like, I'm so nervous before I went up there for some, it's like, you're nervous and you're like, yeah. So it's going to be there. I think that you're supposed to do everything that makes you uncomfortable. If it's making you uncomfortable, you should do it. Within reason, of course, make sure it's in your business. But you have to do it, because if you're so comfortable, you're never going to get ahead or do anything. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. And my coach, who got me to start this podcast, Steve D. Sims, he was saying, his big thing is make it ugly. It doesn't have to be perfect, or neither do you. You just have to do it, get going on it. And just like you said, you have to get moving. You can't just procrastinate, because then you'll never do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's impossible to have it be the way that you visualize it in your mind with that picture perfect, like everything looks great, because if you don't ever take the first step, you never get anywhere. And most people get really stuck when they're starting with the negative self-comparison piece. So like you're saying, he says, like, just go out and start doing it. And my mantra in that moment is screw perfection, just get started. Like, screw perfection, just get started. And I can't tell you how many things I've sent out with typos and we're not perfect at all. And I just looked back and went like, who cares? It attracted people. It helped me get out there. It helped me practice. And then it gets better and better over time, and you're always going to be making mistakes that you learn from. And then, you have that piece of negative self-comparison where you go, most of the entrepreneurs I see when they're starting, they're comparing themselves to someone who's 10, 15, 20, sometimes 50 years ahead of them. So I see this all the time where they'll go like, it needs to be to this level. And then when I ask them, okay, well, how long has that person been in business? Let's like break this down for your mind so you can let go of this limiting belief in that story that you need to be just like them. They're like, oh, they've been in business for 10 years. Like, yeah, they've been in business for 10 years. It's 10 years ahead of you in steps. And I promise you, when they started, their first video or their first podcast episode was crap, and maybe it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't perfect. And it wasn't what it is today. And you've got to start somewhere. So I always think like, where will you be a year from now if you don't take an imperfect step today?
Yeah. One of the quotes I like is perfection is in the imperfections.
Yeah.
Yeah. The issue, and I totally agree, because when I first started radio, I can't go back and listen to the first few episodes. They're so bad. Right. But 3.5 years later, it's totally different, and you have to get to a point where, same with podcasts, everything you do, posts, everything you do, you have to just, I don't want to say don't care, but just don't care what people think anymore about what you're doing. Just get the information out there. You'll get better at it. You just need to start and do it, because you never know. I mean, there's just so many things that I've started and doing, and nothing's perfect. If you go back to my old stuff, it's horrible, but at least I started it and I'm going forward. Horrible in my standards. Other people might think it's fine, but for me. Yeah.
Oh, me too. My first YouTube video, I think it was around 4.5 minutes long, and it took me like 25 hours to create it, because I learned YouTube and I learned sound and video, and then I did it in all these like sections, and I mean, it was hilarious. I go back, same thing. I can't watch it. I'm like, oh, I cannot look at that. And it was fine, like it got me started, and it's still there on my channel, and it's fun because you get to see the evolution of that video versus 250 videos in. Like, oh yeah, I've made some progress.
Yeah. Again, back to your statement of just, if you're going to start something, you just need to get started, learn, hire everybody that you are not good at.
Yeah.
Period. Even if it's on a contract basis to start, hire everybody to take over stuff that you're not good at and only do what you're best at.
Yeah. I think the hard part there is that people don't know at the beginning what they're good at and what they're not good at always. Like sometimes when they step in, you've got to discover a little bit first to go like, like an example for me was thinking I was going to do relationship coaching, and then starting to watch the evolution of it. That took a little bit of time and discovery. And the problem with the comparison piece is you see someone 10 years down the road, they did all that discovery too, and they figured out who to delegate to, and they figured out what to drop, and they figured out, I think of it as zone of genius work. It's like they figured out what is my zone of genius. Most people don't wake up and know that. It takes them time to discover, especially when they're starting a new business.
Yeah, but you are in the relationship business.
I mean, we all are, right?
No, but the only difference is you're not between two people. It's a person and their business. Yeah, totally. So it's still a relationship. So you're still
yes.
And what I mean is, I hate payroll, right? I hate certain things. I'm not going to do payroll. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. That's not what I'm good at. The best thing I can do is use my mouth. That's what I'm good at, right? So
so as quickly as you can, you want to get to that place. I always tell people to make a drop ad list. And when they're on the drop side, that's going to be things that you don't like to do. You hesitate, you procrastinate, you don't think you're good at, that you want to drop, automate, or delegate as quickly as possible, because then you get to do more of what you love to do. And that's much more magnetic for bringing people your way in your business. Right.
So for me, it's to make sure you know what you love to do in your business. Yeah. And that's all you need. And then as soon as you can get rid of everything else is the plan. Yeah. And sometimes it takes a while because you have to build and you have to make money. But the sooner you can do it, the better off you're going to be and the more money you will make, because you're only focusing on what you're good at.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and people get really stuck there, right? They go, oh, I should do this. I should do that. I see this successful person doing that. I need to take all this on, even with different platforms, right? Like I see people sometimes they start a podcast because they're told they should do it versus going like, do I actually like to do podcasting? I mean, podcasting is a whole world in and of itself. And if you don't like to speak in that way, trying out a podcast, sure, you might discover quickly you don't like it, but don't take things on that you don't enjoy. And a lot of us torture ourselves. I mean, entrepreneurs are in a lot of ways addicted to stress. So when you have high achieving people who are always looking to hit the next mark, we can be a group of people who are very addicted to always pushing themselves to the ultimate limit. And like you and I were talking about, like if you don't challenge yourself, you don't grow. But if you over challenge yourself, you burn out. And so you've got to have that really sweet spot amount of challenge. They actually call it eustress, where it's like optimal growth is at the border of challenge and support. So if you're over challenged, you're going to burn out, because if you do that too long, you're pushing too hard. If you never challenge yourself, you never grow. And so you've got to be pushing yourself in a new direction, trying new things, and very quickly learning, like drop it if I don't like it, automate it, delegate it. Obviously payroll you've got to do if you want to have a growing business.
Right. You hire somebody to do it though.
Yeah. So you want to delegate.
And there's a lot of companies who don't have to work for you to do it. You pay them and they do it, right? And that's the best thing, because then one of the things that I was at an event week before last TNC and we did an actual podcast in person, which I hadn't been
Yeah.
able to do that forever. Right. It's probably actually that was my first for Inner Edison. And I was like, man, I really like doing it in person. But the same thing now, but with that in person, now you have all this editing, you have all this other stuff that, is more than you sometimes want to do in these events, when you're doing podcasting, because I think the average podcast lasts 10 episodes before they quit because they find out how expensive it is to edit it, to do this, to do that. So unless that's something that's your background, you're going to have to, farm that out and do more of it. And it's again, just find out what you like doing and do that. But you still need to get your word out. However that is for you, that's what you need to get out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and shifting it to money conversation, it's like, that's a very, when you said that, I was like, that's fascinating because I didn't know that information. And when I started my podcast, I think that because I had no limiting beliefs around podcasting, because I knew that they had changed my life so much, I just went, I'm doing a podcast. I want to inspire people. I wasn't in it for like, oh, how many downloads am I going to get? At the time, I didn't even know how to check all those things. So it was like, I'm just going to go for it. I care. I want to share. That's an inspired, do what you love path. Right. And that's where we all want to be. Your greatest potential to make the most money possible is when you're doing what you love, because you have spontaneous action. You get up in the morning inspired. You're magnetic. The highest state that you can be in is enjoying what you do. When you hate what you're doing and you dislike your business and you've built a prison for yourself, every day is going to feel like you're trying and begging people to work with you. And that's torture. But people do it all the time. When they come to work with me, it's like they don't like what they're doing. They're feeling stuck. They're feeling miserable. They're feeling like, oh my God, I'm not making any money. And then you got to get back to that core of like, what is it you actually enjoy doing? Why do you want to help people? Why do you want to serve people? And that's your inner spark that gets you moving in a different direction. So you got to be building momentum in the direction of doing what you love. And it seems so simple and logical. And we get stuck in a lot of different points in those money blocks.
All right. So let's talk about money.
Yeah.
All right. So the name of your company, right? Because you haven't said it yet and you're worried about it. So say it.
I wasn't worried, but I've had people say to me before, well, we can't say that because of there's profanity and then my podcast will be marked. I'm like, okay, I'll say no effing around. So my company name is NFA, No Fucking Around Money. And, when I think about NFA, the number one force of NFA is radical responsibility. So it's you going, I'm the creator of my reality. I'm going to be radically responsible for myself. And what that means is that I know that everything I get on the outside is a result of what I'm thinking on the inside. And so I always start with people with their energetic alignment, the way that they're thinking and believing, which then leads to their actions being inspired by spontaneous action, inspiration versus having to force yourself every day. Then you get the results that you want. And over time, your success is inevitable when you come from that place of radical responsibility. Most people want to blame everyone else for their results. So you go like, it's society's fault. It's my parents' fault. It's COVID's fault. It's on and on and on. It's this client's fault. And instead I go, okay, what are you in control of today? Let go of your past. What can you be present about? Set your future for the vision. Take action every single day. Then your success is inevitable. Money accelerates from that place. And so you can people are wildly successful and make a lot of money in a super stressed out way. My goal is to help people be happy. I don't like the word happy, be fulfilled, be content while they're building their business. So making money doing what they love because they're energetically and action oriented, aligned.
Yeah, because people have to figure out what their perfect world is. Happiness, you said not happiness, but basically, what success mean to them, right? Yeah, some people that means I'm driving, this car, I got a plane, I got this, I got making this amount of money. Some people want to spend more time with their family and this and have enough money to do everything they want to do, but be able to enjoy life. You need to know what that is, because your success, whatever that definition is for you, is what you need to stick with, not what is somebody else's success. Because you could be, my industry that I'm in, part-time, or I should say full-time, but doing all this other stuff, is the mortgage industry, right? And the success there is how many numbers are you closing a month, or how big is your company? The problem is, just like we went through last year, we did more in a year than we normally do in 10 to 15 years, right? Yeah. So everybody's burned out in our industry because they're so tired and then it's just kept going. And now you got purchase issues and you have so you have to be okay with saying, okay, this is what my goal is. And I want this amount of free time, or I want this amount of free time. You need to know that as you go in for your business, so you know where you get to. I know some media companies who are growing. They're like, I don't want to get to this size because of that's, 250 employees. I don't want that many employees. You need to know what that is and what your future soul, what you're looking for in the future looks like. And how do you get people to figure that out?
Yeah, what you're pointing out is designing your business from what you want your overarching holistic picture to be, right? Like the lifestyle approach, and you reverse engineer it, and you go, how much free time do I want? How much time do I want to spend with my family? How many vacations do I want to go on? Do I want to be able to be a digital nomad and travel and work? Those are all important questions to ask yourself when you're starting out and as you're refining. So, helping people understand that, again, like it starts with the simplest things. It's like drop ad list. If they're already in business, that's a different thing. And people come to me when they're already in business usually. And so it's helping them refine and get clear about getting reconnected to why they started in the first place, dropping all the things that aren't aligned. And then that question, like, how do I want my day to feel like? Because exactly like you're saying with the mortgage industry, we can define success just by the dollar amount in the bank, and it sounds like with NFA money, like the goal is like massive amounts of money. No, it's the right amount of money for you to supply your life with the feeling of contentment and fulfillment on an everyday basis. So you wake up in the morning and you go like, awesome, today starts Monday and I'm psyched because I love what I do. And I'm not freaking out, stressed out, taking heartburn medication because everything sucks. Like you want to feel good when you wake up, in all of the things matter. It's that holistic approach of like, if you're burnt out and freaking out about the way you make money or how protecting it and fearful about it, you're going to build a business that you don't enjoy, or you're going to do work you don't enjoy, right? And so when I think of people, they go, does everybody have money blocks? And I said, yeah, most people do. And you never eliminate them, because you could be a multimillionaire and you go to bed stressed every night because you're worried about protecting it, and you don't know it. Or you could be really in the money block, money is scarce, and go like, crap, it might go away, so I got to keep pushing this hard forever. And you never have the feeling of feeling relaxed and content about it. So people forget that it's not the have, do, be, right? It's not like, oh, once I have a certain amount of money in the bank, I'll feel good. Most people strive for that. They go, oh, I'll have this amount, I'll start saving, I'll start taking vacations, I'll start going on regular dates with my partner, and I'll exercise regularly once I have all that money. And that's the same as someone saying, oh, I'll lose 20 pounds once I go to the gym. Right. Like I'll lose 20 pounds and then I'll go to the gym, right? No, you got to go to the gym first and start the process, and you lose 1 pound at a time and you feel good along the way. And it's who you turn into along the journey. And so the money-making game is absolutely no different if you want it to feel good. Lots of people make tons of money and just are stressed to hell and don't enjoy their lives. That's not what we're striving for. I go like, let's love our lives. Let's make all the money we want to make, and let's reverse engineer a business where it's actually designed to enjoy yourself every single day. How much do you want to wake up at 6 and then not work until 10? Or do you want to be a person who gets everything done between 5 and 8? Then you might have a business where you go, okay, let's say between 5 and 8, I coach people that are 8 hours ahead of me, and it's midday for them. You can design anything you want, right? That's the thing we forget about. And so we create miserable lives for ourselves based on all the shoulds and expectations and limiting beliefs around what we've seen in our history. So, we get all these downloads when we're kids and we think like, oh, my parents did it this way. And even though we might consciously think, I don't want to create a life like my parents, we create it because unconsciously we've watched it and it's patterned into our brain over and over and over again that that's the way it is. And so we actually have to do the job to train our brain in a new direction where we go, oh, okay, I actually have habitual thoughts running my life. I'm going to change the way that I habitually think about this by first figuring out what it even is. And so you figure out what that is, and then you start to retrain your brain in a new direction. And then you take automatic action in a new direction because you have autopilot habits installed.
Yeah. And one thing that everybody has to realize that it's really lonely at the top. And so you need to have, doing this for over a year, I figured out, talking to so many people, that it's so important to have a coach, cornerman, masterminds, you name all those different things in place so that you have somebody to talk to, because you don't understand. I mean, there's, Tony Hsieh, there's so many people who are really successful who commit suicide. There's so many people who do this because they're so lonely because they have not set up the right people around them on their way up, so to make sure that they're not lonely. And I didn't realize that, because business owners, you can just see it. They don't go out with their employees. They don't go out with this. So they go out with other business owners. Well, a lot of other business owners don't have time because they're running their business and this and that. So you really need people there to support you and have those people in place all the way through.
Yeah. I want to point out two things. You just said two really important things. One, you said like, because we reinstall those beliefs where we go, oh, it's lonely at the top. If we keep telling ourselves that, we create that for ourselves. And then the same thing, we don't have time. It's like, we got to create time for these things. So at the top, you can either be lonely or you can go, oh, at the top. Like if you're someone who chooses to be at the top, and I know this because I've been in this space too, where I'm like, God, it's lonely at the top. I used to have this belief all the time. I'd be like, shit, I have no friends. My last partner cheated on me and literally told me straight to my face, I can't keep up with you. I don't want to keep up with you. It was like, wow, that's intense. It was very hard to go through. And it reinforced that belief, like it's lonely at the top. Will anyone ever like me because I'm a high achiever and I want those things and, I want to make it to the top, that kind of thing. And so letting go of that is realizing it's my choice to then connect with other people and make time for relationships. And so in that's what, NFA is really about. Like when we have NFA money is just a validation of your inner world. And it's why I like to work with money on people, because it's such a clear representation of their inner world, because your money and the way you feel about your money reflects how you feel about everything: abundance, scarcity, connection, relationships, win-win relationships, sales, promoting yourself, confidence. Like there's so much wrapped into that. So the money story to me is just this beautiful teller of everything that's going on inside of somebody. And so, it's interesting to recreate those stories to go, instead of going like it's lonely at the top, it's like, ooh, there's less people at the top that I want to spend time with. Right. And I'm going to find my people that I want to spend time with.
I'm just saying that if you don't plan it, it will be very lonely at the top. Yeah. That's what I'm getting at, because I've seen it when I was employee of a company, watched this owner, he had nobody. And then, so going forward, I want to make sure that you don't have the same thing. So you can plan for all this stuff so you don't have the same issues, but you have to be aware that they could be there if you don't plan. And so, and the whole money thing, I mean, most of us were not brought up with a family who taught us about money. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
We didn't have a rich dad, poor dad book, guy that wrote a book for us and told us everything about money. But it's really important to know what you want, period. What's your plan? And you have to know that. You have to plan. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
people get stuck there. I mean, exactly what you're saying is the first step to making more money is know what you want. People get stuck there, exactly like you're saying, because when they grew up as kids, they might have been told you got to work hard to make money. You got to go to school and get a degree, and you've got to make sure that you get a good job that will pay you. And then you work for 45 years and then you retire and everything's happy. That whole thing is wrong. And it's been downloaded into us over and over and over again by parents, teachers, preachers, society, movies, ourselves. And we recreate that story over and over. So when people come to me in their 40s and say, oh my God, I don't even know what I want, it's not surprising that we don't know what we want, because we're conditioned our whole lives not to know what we want and to not feel okay with what we want, and to set up our what desires for what we want based on our past of future success or failures. And if you think your past failures are awful and broke you and made you feel horrible, you're not going to want to create that again, right? So you unconsciously sabotage yourself. And so we have so many stories to break through and limiting beliefs to break through, and most people don't know that. That's why they feel like crap. It's like they wake up in the morning, they feel like crap, and they go like, oh, the next strategy is the answer. It's not. The next strategy is just a strategy. And think about it this way. Let's say you're overweight right now and you're listening to this, like there are 10, I don't know, if you type in how to lose weight on Google, it's probably in the almost billion number of resources, right? So that's not your problem. It's not the information, the access to information and resources. It's you. It's the way you're thinking about it, because there's plenty of answers out there. It's you needing to change the way you think about it before you can take any action.
Right. It's your relationship, whether it's with food, money, people, whatever that is, And so that's why, you need to know where your issues are, because, for myself, I mean, I was, I've always been in shape till I moved up to Northern California. Well, that was it's hot outside, so I chose not to work out as much outside, right? Where before I was in San Diego, it was always, 70 degrees, no problem riding a bike anytime. You come up here, it's a little different. And so, but my relationship with food is where the issue most of the time is. 80% of your issues are with food usually when you're overweight, right?
Yeah. Well, it's true. People think exercise matters so much. It's like, you work out on the treadmill for 20 minutes, it's like one Oreo, like absolutely. But, in the money world, it's the same way. Like we go, why don't I have money in the bank? Why don't I have the amount of money I want in the bank? And why do most people live paycheck to paycheck? It's because they think once I get ahead financially, I'll start saving. It doesn't work that way. When I was on food stamps, I started saving money. It was $5 a week. I literally started saving $5 a week. And so that was 20. And then it doubled. And then I started to up it every month. And then I started to invest. And then my money started making money for me. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm not on food stamps anymore. Everything is awesome. I mean, it wasn't that simple of but it was like, it started with the $5 a week. Even though I didn't think I had it, I started shifting my habits and I focused in a new direction and went, God, if I don't start saving until I'm out of this hole, I'm never going to get out of the hole. So I've got to start doing the things now that are in alignment with what a saver and an investor and someone who can build passive forms of wealth do. And that all started in my mind. It didn't start with someone else, saying, because, there's a whole bunch of different belief systems around that too. Like people will say, you got to pay off all your debt first and this and that. And I went with the strategy, I've got to do both, save and invest and pay off debt at the same time. That way I can start building my wealth and just creating new habits and accelerating my ability to build my net worth.
Right. But there's also, people say, okay, well, personally, you need to keep your debt down, but business wise, you want to have debt because that's how there's just so many rules differently than, things. And you have to figure out, again, this is about you. Where do you want to go, who you are? And if you have any of these issues, which most people do, work through them, listen to podcasts, listen to different things.
God,
but I mean, there's so much out there. And you brought up that ×2, right? The speed. Oh my God. I accidentally found that one day. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I tried to do 2.5. That was a little too fast. 2.25 was still a little too fast. 2 was just perfect. And it's like, man, I got through a book in like half the time.
Oh, it's amazing. I know. When I discovered that, I didn't know you could do that with videos until like recently. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But it's true. I like what you're saying here, because what it is non-stop training. Okay. So I always tell people you've got to train your brain in the direction of your success. Why do you think that you're going to have an amazing, incredible, spectacular, fulfilling life where you have all the things that we all dream of in our lifestyles and without doing anything to get there? Like, it's like we think, oh, you want 6-pack abs and you're never going to do ab work. Doesn't make sense. And that's so logical. But for some reason, we think it's different with our lives. We go like, I should just have an amazing life, even though I don't do mindset training every day, even though I don't get up and do personal growth and development every day. I mean, I tell all people the number one rule of success is to never stop learning and constantly be working on your personal growth and development. If you don't do those things, why do you expect anything different than you're getting right now? It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. I think we should leave it right there. Mic drop, and we're out of here.
Awesome.
Dr. Amanda Barrientez. Did I go right again?
You did.
Right. I try, and I just, it's one of those days. Hey, I really thank you, everybody, for showing up and watching the episode and listening to it. If you like what we do here, just follow for more. And Amanda, thank you so much for being on the show today.